Thank you for having me. My name is Jacqueline Castañeda.
Hello, I'm Chloe Gamboa.
Hi, I'm Julia Espinosa.
My name is Dr. Jody Copeland.
Hi, as she said, I'm Adrienne Kirk.
I am Erica's childhood friend. I'm 23 years old, not 24, I'm 23.
I am 55 years old.
I'm 18.
I am a longtime friend of Estelle's. We used to work together. We've become friends and been close friends ever since.
I'm a married white lady who is Erica's mom.
I'm Hispanic female, and my profession is I'm a residence director for a small acting conservatory in Los Angeles.
My profession, well, it's been many things over the years.
I've been 2 years in Northside. I am originally from Los Angeles, and I've been living here in San Antonio for more than 15 years. I am married and I have 2 wonderful sons.
I'm a freshman engineering student. I'm female. I'm a Mexican American white passing. My pronouns are she, her.
I have a couple of issues with that question, honestly.
Why would they make them free?
I think it depends on how we define freedom. If I was previously bound, maybe like contained in a jail cell, like if I was imprisoned, once I'm able to leave that place, I may declare I'm free. But I mean, as many people who were recently released from prison soon discover, there are other limitations to their freedom. So there are other systems in place that kind of keep those certain groups bound.
Now we have come a long ways, being that I am one of 10 children and the only one who was able to go to college, and seeing my children, the opportunities, especially the girls. I have 4 girls, and the opportunities they have nowadays that they wouldn't be able to have when I was growing up. Also, I can think about the Vice President Harris, something that we've never seen before.
I think working outside of the home is sort of a double-edged sword.
It was the expectation that I not just be a wife and mother. Like that was that you were to go out and work. But I don't think, I still have to manage like all of the things, no matter if I was working outside the home. Then I just had to manage kids and being outside the home.
You know, the sign of liberation for women was women joining the workplace, right? But when you think about, especially the African American experience, girl, we have always worked. From the day we were brought over on slave ship, we have worked outside of the home. It's not a symbol of freedom because it started as, you know, the ultimate lack of freedom in slavery. And I think that right now, where we are in society, we work outside of the home, but I still don't think that we are completely free.
There are still some limitations because even including in my family, when I got married, my husband's family would say, oh, well, you're already married. There's nothing else for you to do. Stay home, take care of the children, and that's that. But I needed to continue to do something for myself and something for the communities.
There's definitely still limits to our progress as women. I mean, we can work and have bank accounts, but the glass ceiling and how much you have to work in order to achieve the same level of success as a man is still very real.
I think we still have a lot of work to do.
A lot of my values and my steps of like assisting students is often to listen to them, hear them out. Where are they coming from? What have they experienced already in life? And I make those connections with individuals, and we have such different views on life, how we're raised.
I think for the most part it's positive. For the most part it's a way to get to know people, maybe find common ground, find places where you're different, explore that. There are instances in which it feels like it's conflict, but that's not like addressing or talking about your identity or background. It's more like when it's in the context of othering.
It could be positive or negative depending on the intent for which I'm trying to get the information and like what I choose to do with it.
And I think that our identities are all so important to us that finding connections within them can really build strong relationships. I also think, though, there are definitely times when comparing identities can become competitive or even destructive. I've definitely had conversations with people where comparing identities can make me feel like I have to defend the way that I feel about myself, and did not form that bond.
Me, like I can tell instantly when someone's like doesn't want to get to know me, but I also don't care at all what they think or anything, and I either ignore it or it fuels me to like show myself off more, because I know I'm amazing. Like I'm better than basically everybody I talk to. I don't feel like I have to force people to like me, because if they actually got to know me, they would.
Is not meant to say I'm better than you, but it also is to establish that I have had a different experience than you have.
Each person can have different experiences that can kind of feel lonely or isolating if you don't find someone to connect with. So oftentimes sharing that information can also help us kind of find common ground and unite so we don't feel alone.
Though I think solidarity comes down to the mutual respect to others, and the ability to stand up for supporting others in our communities. I think solidarity is one place to grow within, because if we decide to make it a conflict, if we decide to take a stance against one another, there is no seeing each other for who they are rather than the construct we've placed on them.
Technically, we're all the same. Like we all have feelings or dealing with our own shit, are usually in our own minds, just trying to like go through the day. And so that's kind of all you need to talk to somebody. Like that's the one thing we all have in common, is that everybody's completely different.
I think sometimes the best connections happen for me when I'm talking about the things that are most important to me, or when someone else is talking about the things that are most important to them.
I guess I can. It's hard to listen to girls like that Beastie Boys song with the same zeal that I used to have listening to it.
I want to say yes, because I feel like there's a lot of things that are easily ruined, but I also have very little self-control. So even if they are ruined for me, I'm like, like yes, it's bad. Like it technically is bad, and I shouldn't support it or I shouldn't enjoy this. But also I do, so I'm just gonna let myself keep doing it.
But I definitely think there is some validity in suddenly getting knowledge that makes the world seem like a less good place. The human race isn't as inherently good as we once thought it was.
When I was young, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood. And when I was 13, I moved to a predominantly white neighborhood. There were people that they looked at me and they didn't hide what the things that they said. And when they said negative things about Black people, I was very offended. And they didn't even realize that, why would I be offended? And it made me look at the world very differently.
Now that my oldest son is 13, I am now noticing that I have a loss of enjoyment of him reaching this age. I thought I would enjoy him gaining more freedom and being out the way that I was as a youth, and being able to go to the store and go to places on my own. And I am so much more now fearful to let him go. I know who my son is, but others don't view my son the same way. And with just last summer and having to have conversations with him about George Floyd, about Breonna Taylor, about Mr. Aubrey, that is conversations that I didn't have the privilege to not have.
Even like vegetarianism, like you should not be eating meat, or if you do, you should know exactly where it comes from. But also that's so hard to do unless you have money. It would be amazing to like only do the good things, buy from places that you know where it comes from. But that's so hard to do, especially for growth.
Like some of the things that were kind of instilled in me when I was in school, like really made me reflect back, and I was like, how come we're using this in public education? My professors really made sure that they instilled diverse, I guess, authors. Like, how come we don't use that? Like, you know, like we have a week where we're celebrating Dr. Seuss. What does that have to do with like the population that we're working with? How are you supposed to view yourself, I guess?
I recently came to grips with this idea, this story, I didn't realize it was a myth that I believed about America being a melting pot. Like, I recently had to come to grips with the fact that, like, that's not a good thing, you know? That story sounds the same as Manifest Destiny did then.
I still have a very strong connection to my faith, but I was kind of taught that there were these members of the community that are supposed to guide you on your journey in understanding God and getting to know Him better. I think that learning about the people that I was told were embodying His teachings, kind of abusing that power, definitely made me kind of rethink some things and change a little bit of my perspective on certain aspects of my life.
During my junior year of high school, I was the only Black girl on our campus. And though I enjoyed boarding school a lot and it provided me a lot of diverse experiences, once I like left there and like was immersed in the community of like other like-minded Black women, that experience of being the like only one at that school was less enjoyable for me. And in reflection, there are kind of like some things during high school I hid about myself or wasn't comfortable sharing with others during my junior year, that came out without thinking once I was among this other different kind of racial group in college.
I still enjoy being a woman and feeling like empowered in my sexuality. And like, life is short. You can't stay stuck in those moments, because then you'll just like spin out of control. That's not fun.
Oh wow, they don't talk about it.
Not as much a thing as we should.
Better question for you, isn't it?
My family overall, we kind of just avoid topics and push them over the under the rug if there's something maybe we don't all agree with.
We don't know about my mother's history or my father, because they didn't talk up to us about those things, you know. Mm-hmm. And now we wonder, you know, but I'd say, well, my mother had so many children that she probably didn't have time to.
They don't really engage in conversation very well. It's rather of just like not talk about it.
The family that I was raised with would say that like at the surface we loved confrontation, that family dinner was often an argument, but it was very academic and it was very like not personal. We never had conversations about race at all growing up.
I can only like recall one time where my godmother actually talked to me about money and like my credit, keeping my credit well. But other than that, we didn't talk about money. Might be because we didn't have that much.
Is that different? Like if you had a bunch of money, would you not talk about money?
In the community, especially in the past 2 years, I'm not so sure. Sometimes you just have to keep your thoughts to yourself.
My community and who my friends are, we do a great job of talking about different things and listening to one another. Listening to them so you can learn is something that I've really learned from my group of friends.
Family is a lot easier than community because we share similar values.
The family that I'm building right now is a non-traditional family in a lot of ways, and part of that is being mixed race. We have pretty open conversations about it, but it's not confrontational. There is a lot of conversation, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's certainly not like it was when I was growing up.
I think it helps also that I'm having these conversations with people that I know love me unconditionally and I love them unconditionally. So even in the moments where like these discussions get heated, I kind of know that this is still a safe zone for me and still a place where I can bring up these sort of topics.
You're not going to get in trouble for being curious. You're not going to get in trouble for questioning or saying, I'm not sure I agree with that. We talk about politics, we talk about religion, we talk about sexuality, we talk about all those difficult things. The more you address difficult things, the easier those things become.
Teachers, Miss Fogel.
Dr. Shepard, she was our principal.
No, when I went to high school, it was an all-white school. There was about 6 or 7 girls from junior that we went together to that school, and we were Hispanic, all of us. But that was an all-white. They didn't like it that we went there, so.
For the most part, I think that my teachers liked me. Love, I guess.
I had a lot of teachers that really showed empathy and support.
I care about who I was, what I was experiencing, what I was going through. Because they didn't just show up to work and teach, but they stopped me, they talked to me, they invested in me.
The reason I became a teacher was because I had many educators who showed their love for me.
She wasn't pushy about her caring, but she was always in the background, like forcing me to do things that were out of my comfort zone and not giving me an option. You're gonna be this lead role in the play, even though you have anxiety and you don't like speaking, you don't like talking, you don't like reading. You're gonna do it and you're gonna be great.
So my parents actually didn't want to let me go anywhere out of home. She is the one who told me to go to Texas State. She's the one that helped me research like universities and stuff.
This summer that I graduated from 6th grade, we had a house fire because they threw 3 Molotov cocktail bombs into my mom's bedroom window. And my brother was the only one there at the time, and he was able to get out the house unharmed. Even though we were no longer at the school, she still provided, she still contacted us. She followed up with us. She helped us with school supplies. There was nothing that she had to do for us, but she did. She wasn't just words, and I experienced it for myself.
I show love to my students by
take out a lot of freaking splinters. You know, holding a child in your arms that has a fever until their parent can get there. That's like 15 minutes is a long time, but when you can do that for 40 minutes, you just like to have this hot little creature sitting on your lap, and it's not your child.
Sometimes going to school is an escape for some students. Classrooms can be an escape to just, you know, learn, study, and grow.
I like to encourage them. If they get 3 out of 10 problems correct, I focus on those 3 problems. No matter how many problems they got wrong, they focus on what is correct.
Relating to them, because I know that a lot of them will be first generation students. I always make sure I'm like vulnerable with them.
I don't engage with children, like all of the children at the school on a regular basis, but anytime I do, I just try to connect to them directly and give them attention.
You know, I may fuss at you because you aren't doing what you're supposed to do, but before you end the day, I'm going to tell you something that you did great and that I loved about you.
Not well.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because I was authority.
I think you probably are more defiant than all the other children.
I don't think that occasion ever arrived to where I would, you know, it would be necessary to do something like that.
With my son, I don't think I ever told him to talk against authority. Now, I know authority can be wrong sometimes, but I don't think being a child, he doesn't have to worry about things like that. He just needs to walk away.
Challenging authority is hard for any age, but a lot of times it has to be done.
I have a son who's 20 that I taught when he was very little that everything in life was negotiable. And that is the worst thing I could have possibly done. I was a very young mother. I didn't realize what I was setting, that I was teaching him that all of my rules were also negotiable.
You know, I have a daughter who loves to challenge me, whether it's on faith or science or just, you know, how to be a good person in society. She keeps me on my toes. She always has a rebuttal, but there's never a time that I feel like she is trying to challenge my control. You know, we have a mutual respect for each other, and I think that is the key.
With respect, you're able to have debate.
If you walk up to him and say, "Why did you vote for that person? What were you thinking?" What type of response do you really think you're going to get? And are you going to really have the conversation that you're looking to have? He can challenge me as well. And there'll be times where I will be able to have an open conversation. But you're gonna also have to understand there'll be times where I, as the adult, it won't be such an open conversation.
I have a daughter who's 10, and with her, instead of outright saying challenge authority, it's more about instilling a really strong moral compass and trusting her to understand when what's going on around her is right versus wrong, regardless of who the messenger is.
I just have to teach him what's right and what's wrong and when to use, his different views on things.
You not only speak up for yourself, but you speak up for your family and you speak up for people that aren't your family.
Making sure that they're growing into their personality and their own views and ideas. And I want to make sure that they are able to express what they think. But at the same time, if things get under control, remind them, well, everything has rules. As long as we keep respect for everyone, then you can express what your thoughts and feelings about a topic is.
I can't tell her that everything's negotiable, because if I have another teenager like that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know that I could live through another one.
And then with my students, this is something I've focused on this year.
I like to teach with the truth.
Because I'm confident in what I know and in what I believe, both for my own children and for the children I teach, so that I don't mind them having questions. I don't mind them challenging me. I don't mind if there's a time when I have to say, I don't know the answer to that, and nobody knows the answer to that, but it's okay for you to question it. It's okay for us to seek out answers together.
I always encourage them to ask questions, providing that environment to where they feel comfortable to have these conversations.
Been doing some social justice slides where it talks about different scenarios or situations, and we talk about it as a class, not just going with the status quo, and having my students understand that if something's wrong or if they know it's not appropriate, they can stop and think about it. I'm trying to teach my students to stop and think about, well, yes, that might always have happened, or yes, that's what someone's telling you to do, but is it right? And standing up for those things respectfully that we don't think are appropriate or correct.
We talk about current events in my classroom. I always somehow try to incorporate them, especially when there's like big things going on. Our social studies curriculum doesn't necessarily say teach about what's going on in the world, not necessarily let what my opinions are influence them, but just talking to them with the truth and facts.
I tell them to question me all the time. I don't mind it, but I tell them they need to be respectful.
I don't want anybody to take what I say and just believe it just because I said that, but I do want you to be respectful.
One of my class rules is be respectful. They're all entitled to their own opinion. I always tell them you don't have to necessarily agree with other people's views, but you do have to respect what you think.
And I will answer it all. Ask me, but you still have to respect the relationship between you and I.
My mother taught us not to argue with somebody that you do not agree with her, but don't argue. Said it's better that there's one crazy person instead of two.